you just joined us, you're watching TVC Breakfast, and it's now talk time. And we're talking the welfare of Nigerian women. And we're talking the welfare of Nigerian workers. The Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria held a rally in Lagos to demand for good governance and viable policies.
Correspondent Sharon Ejason tells us more.
The Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, amongst other notable Nigerians, came out in their numbers to demonstrate workers' agitation towards the non-payment of salaries and gratuity in some states in the country. They are, however, of the view that good governance has to be enhanced in the country, and also the need to fight against corruption. Labour leaders here also have the view that workers' minimum wage has to be reviewed urgently.
This protest is to express our dissatisfaction over the situation in Nigeria. The economy is not just biting, but it's a threat to our future. And we must do everything possible to ensure that Nigeria's future is secured. And without this protest, the government may not know the feelings of Nigerians. They are angry, they are hungry, and there's nothing than to show that indeed they are not satisfied. So we must continue this protest until there is a change in the style of governance.
The lack of political will and leadership to address the economic downturn, the recession, whatever they call it. And generally, people are very, very upset with the government, and they are deciding to take this peacefully by protesting for as many days as possible until they achieve their aims and objectives and goals.
We're here to express our anger, our frustration in the system. But I believe in people's power. I believe that the time is right for the youth and everybody concerned who feel displaced in this our equation. Yeah? Because we should hold the government responsible and accountable. And that is why the campaign of our Mumu don't do. Yeah? Because my own Mumu don't do.
Onlookers watched and expressed dissatisfaction over the country's economic situation as the number of protesters increased. Workers and ordinary Nigerians are optimistic that the federal government and its executive members will come up with innovative ideas to improve the standard of living of the average Nigerian. Sharon Ejason, TVC News, Lagos.
If you listen to the lyrics of the song, the refrain there, let me try and translate it. It says, "Issue more, Gary more." That the price of gari had gone up, the price of yam, the price of rice had gone up. So it is time to demonstrate. And you had Charlie Boy there, our Mumu don't do. Mumu is a Nigerian parlance for docility.
Absolutely. You know, this is what one thing that touches, that permeates, every aspect of the Nigerian society. As a matter of fact, I sent a message to my uncle in Delta, asking them to help me, get a bag of gari. Did you know how much?
How much?
15,000.
For you, but
I was shocked.
The red gari.
Yep,
okay.
Absolutely.
All right, so let's bring in our guest right now. With us in the studio is an economist, Segun Omishakin, and also joining us from Abuja is the head Department International Relations Nigeria Labour Congress, Uchenna Ikwe. We're expecting him to join us very soon. But Segun, it is over to you. What is your own slogan? Your Mumu don't do, or Ishuti one, what's yours?
Both. Everything.
Nigerians are well within their constitutional right to go out in the streets and say enough is enough.
Yeah. This situation, to me, primarily summarizes the Nigerian system. This is not the first time where you see, in fact, you could even see the change in the approach of NLC. In those days, the primary concern used to be increase in wage. Now, nobody's even talking about the wage because we are in a serious recession. So what they are asking for, just govern us well. Just try. Let the macro environment change. Let's feel the governance. And to me, this is just the list of those agitations that people can have. But unfortunately, I don't see anything meaningful coming out of that, because if you look
Why
at
is
the
that?
macro environment,
Why do you have this sort of feeling?
Yeah, I have this feeling because if you look at the macro environment and you interpret what is happening to Nigeria presently, you will know that we are in a bigger problem than what appears
It's
to
on
be
the surface.
Yeah, we are in a bigger problem. And that is why I don't really envy the present government, even though, to be sincere.
You know you won't say that, and I'll look the other way. Let's try and dissect what exactly you're talking about. What are the bigger problems?
The Nigerian economy is so sick, and it needs a long-term approach, a long-term solution. We are, of recent, we were rejoicing because the price of oil has increased, and you know that happens to be the major
Talking of
problem.
crude oil,
Crude oil,
not your palm oil.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
And we were exempted from the ban. I mean, from the restriction in the output,
OPEC.
and including Libya. But now you could see what is happening from the U.S. U.S. is also increasing the output of his own production. And so this momentum, this temporary situation on hold, thank God we're having more revenue from that sector, might be in a big mess. In other words, whether we have the increase in revenue, we have more forex on, or we don't, what is happening to our economy needs long-term approach.
The ripple effect of that hike in crude oil price is and I'd like you to expatiate on that, is this, that now you sell your crude oil at higher prices for the international market, the buy it at the international market, but because you don't refine your product here, you refine it more expensive, then you bring it back to the people, it's more expensive. So the people, like the NLC are talking about, are the ones bearing the brunt. The people at the lower rung exactly are the ones bearing the brunt. Can you expatiate on that?
Yeah, you have just done that. Great. If, for instance, what is happening to an average Nigerian worker could be looked at in 3 dimensions. The first one is what is happening, your welfare, your place of work. I'm talking of the environment, what you work with, whether it's your standard, the time you are resuming, how long you are working, those health factors, that's one. The second is whether you are well paid, whether you are paid after you have worked, whether there are provisions for your health, whether there are provisions for your children, or whether when you are invalid, whether there are some provision. And the last one, which is more serious, is the macro environment. Don't forget, this same worker is exposed to macro environment. So even when you are paid, you are still going to use the same money to buy goods that are now expensive. And you are also on basic salary. You are not an investor, so your money is, the power of your money is being eroded each day because of the high rate of inflation, interest rate, and so many other macro aggregates. So this is a massive problem.
Yeah, and people are again in a worry that even though that they say we are in recession, which is very apparent, of course it is a reality. Now, those in government are acting as if we are not in a recession. For instance, what happened at the House of Reps between Yakubu Dogara and Jubrin and all that, where Jubrin made so many revelations that startled Nigerians. Indeed, people are worried that even though you say we are in a recession, you are not acting it.
Yeah, that's. I think the problem is not just all about the recession. Of course, we've always been having serious high cost of governance, legal high cost of governance,
illegal.
You have some, things going on. So, of recent, serious revelation with respect to what happened to the last administration and people, amassing dollar here and there. And then you didn't have recession. I think, to me, if you are able to, I'm not encouraging corruption, but that's why I'm saying that the problem we are facing is huge, and it's going to take a longer time to face out. If we get the structure of our economy such that is robust enough, that gives us the grace or the strength to fight corruption. People don't even have that strength to fight corruption now. People cannot blow any whistle because you don't even have the strength to do that. So when you are hungry, there is nothing you rather participate in whoever is going to buy you any big.
Yeah,
you do.
The strength to blow the whistle, or the willpower to blow the whistle. Okay, Shegun, we'll just hold your thoughts. We'll go on a short break now and return with more on TVC Breakfast. Stay with us.
All right, it's still talk time on TVC. Of course, we still have Dr. Olusegun Omishake, an economist, here in the studio with us, looking at problems.
Just promoted you today.
The problems,
Yes,
the problems facing the Nigerian worker. You know, during the break, I was, just pondering within me, why is it that the Nigerian worker cannot be paid beyond 18,000 naira as minimum wage?
Now, recently, the South African workers are pushing for about $250 for their minimum wage.
Yes.
And if you convert the present rate,
Exchange rate,
with respect to labor's agitation, I think they are looking at 56,000 naira,
yes.
and that you get something like $100. So to me, yes, of course, you can't just compare different countries' rate together. You look at the rate of economic growth and development.
I was going to say that because their growth rate between that is about 3 to 6%.
Yeah,
we don't have that.
Yes,
Instead, in Nigeria, we're contracting.
Yeah, so you may not outrightly say, oh, because my mate somewhere, but still, to me, I think that should be the minimum. That shouldn't be what they will be agitating for. And these are the set of people that is facing the recession. Anytime you talk about recession, you talk about worker.
And unfortunately, when prices of goods and services rise, companies don't follow suit as well in terms of, increasing salaries as well.
Of course, you know that. Even, of course, that's normal. So an average worker works is because they couldn't work. When you talk about the fall in productivity that even led to this recession, it's emanating from that production angle. And so when they are faced with what is happening within their environment, the wage is not increased, and you want them to use the same salary to buy what has drastically increased. There is no way
that encourages corruption in the system.
So there is no way you will not be happy. And we are even talking about the set of workers now, the NLC, who have what it takes to mobilize its members and say, we want to bargain for it. There are thousands of workers who don't have that capacity to do that. So they are just left alone. If you say
today, not under the umbrella of the NLC,
any bargaining power, they are just left alone. You talk about, look at what is happening in states. Forget what is happening even to the federal government. Look at what is happening to workers under states. You remember when almost 2/3 or even 30 states in this nation failed.
Even bankers, some bankers who are on contract basis who lost their jobs, nobody to speak up for them.
Because there weren't no union to fight for them.
Okay, so thank God we have an NLC person with us in Abuja. He is the head of Department International Relations, Nigeria Labour Congress, Uchenna Ukwe. Many thanks for joining us this morning on TVC Breakfast, Uchenna. Really, you're lucky. NLC is there to speak.
Thank you very much.
Indeed. Our guest in the studio said, you're lucky that workers under the umbrella of the NLC are lucky that they have a voice. But is the voice being heard, Uchenna?
Well, it depends on what you mean about the voice being heard. If you realize we've done quite a number of engagements, because first, when you talk about workers that belong to Nigerian Labour Congress, you're not just talking about workers at the federal level. It includes workers from the local government and the states. If you check in the course of the past 1 year, we've had series of engagement and battles with state governments with the worst situations, especially those who threaten to sack workers, those who owe longer months of salaries, where there are more crises of pension arrears and gratuities. So if you take it from that, our voice has been heard, because we have been trying to engage the worst scenarios. Even if you talk about the banks, which the union, most of them don't even belong to unions. If you remember, sometime last year, especially during the time of the ILO, the ILC meeting, we started engaging even far away from Geneva, and eventually came home and forced some actions that led to the banks rescinding the approach of sacking so many workers. So we have done engagements, and our voice has been heard from that point of view.
All right. What is your because the guest in the studio here talked about those who do not belong to any union at all, who are not unionized. What is the Nigerian Labour Congress doing? Because when we talk about fighting for workers' welfare, what comes to mind first of all is those who fall under the Nigerian Labour Congress, the federal government, state governments, and all of that. What is NLC doing to ensure that those who do not belong to these unions also benefit?
Yeah, first let me clarify that those in NLC are not just workers at the federal government, state government, and local government. There are so many other unions which are in the organized private sector. They are all part of the Nigerian Labour Congress. But outside the organized private sector, from a general viewpoint, because we cannot intervene in an industry that is not unionized per se, because the guest, I guess, is a lawyer. First, the question will be what's your local standee for coming in? But by the time we fight a general fight of about the macroeconomic governance of the country, it covers all. And if you notice, the reason why we have insisted and pushed about the labor issues not being removed from the exclusive legislative list is to be sure that issues like minimum wage becomes national and governs even the smallest industry, so that even if tomorrow you unionize the ununionized, you don't start fighting to have them a minimum base wage of labor, of salary. So, and from that perspective, we do a whole lot of fight for even the unionized workers. It might interest you to know that even some working groups that are not even working under anybody, take for example, Welders and Feeders Association belong to the Nigerian Labour Congress. And we try to do engagement, even for them, from the point of view of policies that will affect their work. We do quite a lot that is not publicized. The only thing people know and when people talk about NLC is only when there's a protest. But they forget that protest is the last point. When so many negotiations and battles and engagements have gone in, those achieved during those negotiations are basically never publicized. If you work in the recent time, let me even start from the industry, which I have the opportunity to be speaking to the world. The press itself. There have been a whole lot of terrible practices within the print and electronic media. Recently, is a major point we are focusing on engagement, and we are discussing with the primary union, the NUJ, to team up with them to deal with the crisis in the industry, where some of them are owed up to 18 months and 20 months and all that.
There is also some kind of division in your ranks. There's a new group in town called the United Labour Congress. It is not the same NLC. Is there trouble in paradise?
Well, there's no problem at all. There's no problem. There's no division. Well, some unions felt aggrieved after the last election, and we are using internal mechanism to be discussing and dealing with it. But it does not distract us from the main issues, because first, whether there are even 10 centers, provided that those centers focus on workers' issues, we have an agreement, basic line agreement, in the sense that any union, remember, the centers are made up of various industrial unions. And if our primary purpose is to defend the interests of the working people, of course, that will collapse any division when that comes to the fore.
The demand for the new minimum wage, the NLC is asking for 56,000. The United Labour Congress is asking for 90,000. That sounds like some kind of a discordant tune.
Well, first, like I said before, if you understand our laws, today in Nigeria we have 2 centers recognized by law, registered, and you can't operate without registration. That's the law. And the 2 centers are NLC and TUC. In negotiation, based on ILO standard, the most representative center leads in those tripartite negotiations. NLC is the most representative center. In the tripartite negotiation that will lead to a minimum wage, it will be led by Nigerian Labour Congress.
Uchenna, hold on there. We're going to be back to you. Let's talk to Dr. Olusegun Omishake in the studio here. Well, 18,000 Naira minimum wage. Even at that, states are finding it very difficult to pay as they owe months. You know, what does that really say? Isn't it time for states to start to be proactive in terms of, revenue generation?
Now, the question that we should ask ourselves is, how do these states, how do they come about what they earn in terms of internally generated revenue or the revenue from the federal government, and look at the structure of workers in those states. Now you see a state that is not producing anything, and all you just have is about 90% of workers are people who are working with administrative structure. There is no way eventually on the long run they will pay. You go to the state house, you go to different, so many things that should be done. And I also know that, of course, there are serious issues in terms of welfare of workers and the rest. But if you go to a typical secretariat, you will be surprised. You will be surprised. If you are running a state like your business, as if the governor is the CEO, you will know how to generate income. You know how to structure. In other private sectors, you can't just sit down and doing nothing and everybody is just coming to that state. That is the problem you have eventually. Most states that are failing to pay are states that are failing to generate anything, and they are just gathering people together by political reasons or whatever, just to work, and there is nothing coming out. If you work, the simple theory of economics is that you have labor, you have capital, you have and the rest to come out with output. But when you are coming together and there is nothing coming out, no output, something that you can relate with, then you can't pay as the CEO.
When there is outflow and no inflow,
you can't pay. That is the problem.
All right, doctor. All right, doctor. Just hold on. We're going to take a break at the moment, and when we come back, we're going to still talk about issues relating to workers' welfare in Nigeria. Stay with us.
Glad to have you back. It is still TVC Breakfast. It is talk time, and we're talking the welfare of the Nigerian workers. We have our guest in the studio, an economist, Segun Omisaki. And of course, in our Abuja studio is the head of Department International Relations, Nigeria Labour Congress, Honorable Uchenna Ekwe. Uchenna, back to you now. In 2010, when you pushed for the 18,000 minimum wage, the exchange rate then was about 120 to 125 naira to a dollar. Today, you 156 naira. The exchange rate is about 400 to 500. How will your purchasing power be empowered?
As a matter, you said it all. What do I need to say more? Clearly, not just that the exchange rate have weakened the quantum, the value of the 18,000. The inflationary rate have also made nonsense of even the salary. That is why we're insisting that even the argument now, even when we propose the 56,000, the devaluation rate have not even gotten to this point. And that's why we say clearly that the take-home pay cannot take anybody home anymore. And that's why we say the way forward is that the minimum wage should be negotiated immediately and implemented.
Does it concern you that the Nigerian Labour Congress, as it is at the moment, has got credibility issues?
Credibility issue. Hello?
Yes, yes, of course. Does it concern you that the Nigerian Labour Congress has credibility issues at the moment, divisions in the Nigerian Labour Congress? As a matter of fact, one of the lead protesters in the protest going on at the moment wrote an article about how people attacked him because he associated himself with the NLC.
Well, it is neither here nor there, because when you talk about credibility question, who is doing the assessment, who is the one questioning the credibility? People have their various interests. Many have total lack of understanding of even what the NLC is all about. Many.
Oh, okay. We'll try and reconnect with Uchenna, but Ike's question on the issue of credibility, maybe when Uchenna comes out, we'll try and spell it out. There are allegations of compromise within the ranks of NLC, that once there are issues, the top echelon gets sorted out and the issues are thrown away.
The 2012 field protest was a great case in point, really, where Nigerians thought that the momentum, it was a time they would get something, and then all of a sudden.
All right.
Yeah, well, I'm not, I think you'll be the best person to answer that because it's an insider. I'm not, but what I believe is that corruption and all these practices are not just residing with the federal government, state governors, national assemblies. They are also embedded in our working system, in the work among workers. And I'm not really concerned about the leadership who gets what, maybe they get money and then they stop the old stuff. But let's look again. It's very important to talk about the welfare, and I must say it. Let's look again at the structure of an average worker in Nigeria. Let's look at the productivity. An average worker in Nigeria here will have a system, a way of working, and if you take the same worker out of Nigeria to another country, the system will change.
All right.
The time you resume, what you do, productivity, what you are measured against, those things, but I can't really say whether somebody
we'll
among
come
them
back to you and you let us in into as an economist, the reality of what the purchasing power will be like today with the 56,000 naira they are demanding for. But back to Uchenna, the question earlier was on the issue of credibility, and I'm adding to it the allegations of compromise, where the ranks of NLC is compromised, officials of NLC are compromised when it comes to issues of protest swept under the carpet. Uchenna.
For example, because there's a very wide allegation, those kind of thing doesn't exist to my knowledge. And I had a big talk about 2012 protests. First, let me make it clear. People must understand that we are a body set up by law and have rules of engagement. First, we're a body that negotiates. We are not like a one-man civil society that can stay in his house and issue orders. We take orders from the workers themselves. We bid from what does the worker want at a particular point in time. In 2012, to set the record straight, we went out to do a protest on petroleum. Some politicians want a regime change. We in NLC didn't set out for regime change. And a good number of the characters who were calling for regime change were people who have been in position and attacked the working people. For example, if you cast your mind back to that protest, you had the Fani Kayodes who were in governance and were speaking against government, against NLC, and because they were displaced at that particular point in time, they wanted to use the NLC as a springboard to push for a regime change. We are an organization with clarity. We do our debates and we set out our objectives, and we cannot take a blackmail to do people's political bidding.
All right, Uche, let's come back to Dr. Omishakin here in the studio. Well, let's compare as an economist. Look at the fiscal environment in relation to the demands of the Nigerian NLC, the Nigerian Labour Congress. You think it's feasible now?
Well, it's a very serious case, very dicey, because this is a period where the government is going through recession. But again, this gives the government, in my own opinion, the best opportunity to fulfill the expectations of average Nigerian worker. You ask me why. Look at the Nigerian Economic Recovery and Growth Plan that will be launched this February. You have different strategies or aims and policies and goals, about 59. And you have about 12 more strategic that will look at the short-term quick wins. Now, the point is, if the Nigerian government can bring in the NLC's agitations, let's just streamline everything to wages now. If you can bring in and then increase the wage within that framework, to me it will be more productive than, oh, you want to give some selected group of people 5,000, you want.
That's you're talking about the social intervention.
Yeah, so those things are very difficult to trace. The impact you cannot really know. So if the Nigeria, if the NLCs and other trade unions and could have something within that framework, to me it will be beneficial. You are improving their capacity, manpower. You are encouraging them, and then you are making sure that the present inflation rate is not just eroding everything away.
Launch back into the system.
Into the system. So to me, that would be more meaningful.
All right,
let's look at 18,000. To me, is just too ridiculous.
Okay, we have some Nigerians also saying something. We'd like to hear that. Foladele is ready for us. Folade.
Hello again.
Hello.
Back. Good morning, Segun.
Good morning.
Okay, so let's see what some Nigerians are saying. Susan Damsel says, Nigeria now is making lives miserable. Cooking gas, 6K. Please, can they just review government workers' salary? I'm beginning to get angry. Obi Hugo says, a driver in my place of work that earns 30K just got married and is extremely happy. Whatever works for you. Lauren says, the only constant thing in Nigeria is salary. Chinua Ona says, a teacher simplified direct current as where salary of workers in Nigeria is constant while prices of things in the market keeps on increasing. Chinedu Majamiwe says, I'm not happy the way things are going on in Nigeria. Everything is costly. Government don't pay workers after working for a whole month. And the last one here from Shani Dika, who says, if you have a job in Nigeria, please hold on to it. The suffering in Nigeria is unexplainable. Some sacked workers received 60,000 as payoff.
They are even lucky. Some don't get anything.
And some don't even get any, so you should be lucky.
Well, doctor, the condition of the Nigerian worker is really, really terrible.
Terrible.
All right, Foladele has a question.
Yeah, before I go, as an economist, Segun, how can you advise Nigerians to manage, their income right now when things are really tight, because, we're talking about the rising cost of food earlier. Of course, the government says they're on it, but before they even get it sorted, how can people manage the little they get right now? Someone here says someone is earning 30,000 naira.
And he's happy.
And he's happy, exactly.
Well, to me, management in terms of recession is a natural thing. Everybody will know how to manage. You don't need to advise anybody. If you're having 3 cars and you have to fuel everything, then you start thinking of using one. And sometimes you may say, okay, let me join them and go through more.
Let me jog.
Just make sure that you are really float, because the truth is this situation, economic situation we find ourselves may linger, may not just be a short-term issue. It's going to take, to me, it's going to at least, yes, we can record growth. People are talking about GDP, but that is not the welfare. That is not the welfare, So we can have more growth, we can have this and that, but...
Are you confident, very, very quickly, are you confident with what you are seeing so far economically, in terms of policies, that we are likely to get out of the woods?
Yeah, of course. The point I'm trying to make is that we are getting out this. I'm confident that this year.
Okay, we have to let Foladele go. Foladele, it's time for you to go.
All right, thank you.
Bye. But I understand what you're trying to say, the difference between growth and development.
Yeah.
As we wrap up this segment, let's just quickly bring in Uchenna to say 1 or 2 things on the issue of social interventions. Segun said instead of social interventions, the salary hike is the best way to go. Your take on that quickly.
My take on that is both is necessary. Both is necessary because you need a minimum floor of social welfare. In fact, it's actually the rise in salary and those small social intervention is the quickest way to go out of the recession. Because when you pay the salary, if you watch during the American recession, the first thing Obama did was increasing salary. Why is that the fastest way to do that? The money you pay to the workers goes straight to the market. They are not going to the bank. They want to buy things, and that's a sure way of circulating money. But why you need to do those social welfare interventions is that the pressure on those few people that receive salary is too much, because they have so many dependents because of our extended family system. And you know, in Nigeria, there is a whole lot of people who are living what Fidel Castro called below poverty level. There are people who are in this country who they are earning in 3 months could be 1,000 naira. Such intervention is important to reach that lowest people on the down the ladder rung. And that's why
that's where we'll leave it for today. Many thanks for coming on TVC Breakfast. Uchenna Ikwe is the head of the Department International Relations of the NLC,
and Dr.
Segun is here, Omishakin, who is an economist. We must thank you for coming on TVC Breakfast. We appreciate your time and your thought, and that is where we'll draw the curtain, according to Mike, who is not here today. Right now, we'll draw the curtain on the issues that this morning we've talked about: the welfare of Nigerian workers, the rising cost of food, and the government's measure to help stem the tide, and of course the Lagos City Marathon race. You promise to be there next year.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm sure.
Okay, it's going to be some marathon.
Well, thank you very much indeed. That's the show today. We'll see you again tomorrow. I am Ikechukwu Obieno.
And I am Busola Mintuashe. Bye for now.